Hello, I'm ABX and welcome back to the video. So there's something interesting that happens with the brand new version of Minecraft on the Xbox, where there's something you learned on the old version that works perfectly for you and you do all the time, but that just doesn't work on this new version. And rather than learning the hard way for all these things, like I have, why not just learn from today's video some things that you've probably learned over the past few years that aren't valid for this brand new version. The reason they're not valid is because this is an entirely separate version of Minecraft built up from scratch over the past 6 years or so, and because it's built for a different platform with different players and different input devices in mind, it means that there's a lot of strange differences with just a different, creative vision too, that mean that you're going to need to unlearn some stuff and relearn some different stuff, like I'll be teaching you in today's video. So hopefully you all do enjoy it, like if you do like it, because it helps out the channel, and lets know you do like playing Minecraft a little better than you probably are right now. But with that said, let's get straight into the very first thing you need to keep in mind, which is creepers. So creepers are very dangerous, and we've got some creeper spawn eggs, just to show you that, yeah, you should watch out for these guys. But everyone knows creepers, they look even the same, and although they, they're pretty similar with everything they do, same walking animation, you'll notice, first of all, they walk a little bit faster on the pocket edition, and they're a little bit more likely to explode, because again, even from this distance they can explode, and they will do a lot of damage even from that kind of minimum distance, because the creeper is a bit more lethal on the brand new version than it is in the old. So just keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that you can't do the old like run into them and whack a few times, because that timer seems like it's a little bit short. Again, it's hard to be certain, but the way it activates is just entirely different to the way it does before, to the way it did before. And you've got to keep in mind that the creepers are a different beast altogether. Try and be safe with them until you can learn them perfectly, because the whole like, oh, I'm going to try and run into them strategy, that's a lot more dangerous. As you can see, it used to do no damage at all, and now it leaves you with like half a heart left. So yeah, if you're going to run past creepers, you can't run through them anymore. You can't just like, charge in and whack them a few times, because they're very, very dangerous strategies. Get used to it and keep that in mind. The next thing you want to keep in mind, it's also for creepers, but also for any other mob in the game, because basically when you're attacking a mob, you might have been trained to just like spam it, like get it away from you as fast as you can. But the truth about doing that on console is on the brand new console, I should say, is you're going to waste your sword's durability. So you can see your sword actually like has like a little bulge whenever you're using it, and basically this means that you can see it going down when I'm attacking a dead enemy. Whenever you attack an enemy, whether the hit does damage or whether the hit registers or not, it's still going to do damage. So I should say, if the hit registers with an entity, you're going to use up a durability regardless of whether you deal damage to it, which means that when the mob is in its cooldown phase, you're going to be wasting durability without using it up. So in a funny way, this means the new combat system is basically on the Pocket Edition. It's just you don't sacrifice damage, you sacrifice durability. So here you can see it again, even on a sheep. It works on every mob. If you attack a dead mob, if you attack a mob that can't take damage, you're going to be just wasting your time. I'll do the same over here. One more time, just show that like, yeah, you can really, really waste that if you want to. So the next little pro tip here is actually, again, it's actually another one for the same thing, because you've also got to keep in mind that the cooldown between when you can hit and when you can hit again, it's harder to see with a zombie because he's waving fire, but you can see with the sheep here, the cooldown between hitting once and hitting again is much lower on this brand new version, which means you can kill faster in PvP, and you can also hurt mobs a lot faster and kill them just like that. So I'll show a fist actually, probably a little bit easier, but you can see the chicken is like ready to be punched much faster than before. Okay, the chicken had 2 health in it. But if we punch this sheep, because, we're going to punch sheep because we're a terrible person, you can see how, like, the time we can punch is much, much faster. But it does mean you have to keep the delay going, because if your sword has durability, that's going to be wasted. So, yeah, with that said, let's move on to the next thing. Also, your punch is more powerful on this version. Can you see how I'm, like, killing stuff in, like, 5 hits? But, yeah, let's move on to the next little secret, which is to do with block placement. So I'll show you in the nether, because that's probably where you get more, like, effect from it, because you're, like, on the edge and, like, anything can get you. If you want to place blocks from the edge of something really quickly, like in this space basically, so if you want to build like a minecart track, or you just want to get from one place to another, what you're probably used to doing, and the way, that you've probably been trained to do it, is to, okay, my bad. So let's just quickly eat some mutton and heal up from this one. So let's say we want to get to that other bit of netherrack underneath that, underneath the nether fortress. So if we do want to get there, then what you want to do is you want to, like place your blocks usually like this, and then place blocks like that. That's how you're trained to do it. And although this is kind of fast on this version, because it didn't have, like proper controls for the longest time, they made it a bit easier, so you didn't have to like crouch like that to make things annoying, and they instead made it so you could place a block just like this in front of you, which means if you want to go over a big gap like this, the fastest way you can do it, and you can get really good at this if you learn, the fastest way you can do it is just like that, and that's the fastest way over a gap. So again, just kind of show you that, but like with lower stakes, you can in theory like do this just while continuously moving. It's quite tricky to actually entirely pull off, and you do have to be like higher from the sky that you can't place blocks below you, but you can theoretically at very least like just keep walking and go. and you can walk and run at the same time and place blocks, and you can actually get this whole thing done, which is very, very handy, and you might not have known you can do that. So again, if you really master this, if you get the timing down, you can place blocks, even like, you know, make little bridges in the sky way, way faster than you ever could before, which is a really good tip to unlearn and relearn and just make your game a little bit better. The next one is going to require me to go into creative just to kind of show off just the distance between these things, because if we go in right now, so we'll go game mode 1 to go into creative mode. So let me just go back a few things because I said mode mide is not mode, as it turns out. So let's go into game mode creative and then not press that. There we go. So now we're in creative, I can show you the distance between, so if you want to find any structure, the odds of finding that structure is very low. You're going to have to search for thousands of blocks if you want to find a structure on average. Again, sometimes you get lucky. It turns out this is this is from my speedrun seed, so I picked a seed which had a Nether Fortress very close to spawn, but let's say this Nether Fortress didn't exist and we had to find another one. How far would we have to go? Well, on the old console version, the Nether was at max like 600 by 600, and there was always one fortress per Nether, so you'd find it within like, you know, like maybe 100 blocks of searching. And although they're not incredibly rare, they're not as rare as like, you know, you might think there, it does still take a ridiculous amount of time. I mean, actually that wasn't too long, but it takes as it so turns out, this was actually pretty reasonable. But the distance between Nether Fortresses is way higher. The distance between strongholds is, again, thousands of blocks. The distance is between, like, finding a woodland mansion, that can be tens of thousands of blocks. Finding villages, although sometimes you're lucky, you get 2 next to spawn, sometimes there is thousands of blocks in between them. Structures are just rarer on this version. Because you have an infinite world to find them, they've got the PC generation, like, kind of preset going on there, and that means if you want to find anything, you're going to go through a much rougher time to do so. Just keep that in mind as you go forwards with this, that basically, if you want to find structures, you're going to have a much harder time doing so, and yeah, just keep that in mind as we go forward. So I'll try and prove this point just a little bit more. So let's say we want to find a desert temple. So we've got this giant desert right here, as you can see, and if we go through the desert and we look for a desert temple, you might think like, oh yeah, well, like on the console, you'll find one relatively soon, because that's how it is. So even though we have this giant desert that covers all of this area, look how long it's going to take us to find a desert temple. So we'll sprint as fast as we can. I mean, this is about as fast as we can go, it seems, but you can see how like there's no desert temples, still no desert temples. Maybe a desert village if we get lucky over here. We might be that lucky, but there's no, oh, there's a desert temple all the way over there. So you can see the distance we had to go for that is maybe about 800 blocks. And again, both these things have been fairly lucky. These are on the better side of things. If you want to find a particular structure, if you want to find a jungle temple, you want to find a woodland mansion, then you're going to have to search for so long, because this took me about, like, again, we don't have coordinates, so I have to eyeball this. This is maybe 500, 600 blocks in a desert to find that. So if you don't have a desert, or if you just have to kind of pray you find one of these structures, then finding one of these things is much, much, much harder, because the biomes are more spread out apart, and the occurrence of each structure within those biomes is much, much, much lower. So the final tip here that is something you need to unlearn and relearn. So as you can see, no more desert temples, and honestly, yeah, there's no more of them. Just like, we've got this ridiculously sized desert, the size of like an old console world by itself, I would say, pretty easily, but yet we still don't find anywhere in all of this, we don't find another desert temple, because they're very rare, as it turns out. So yeah, the final tip here is actually to do with creative. So we're in creative already, handily enough, and it is to do with placing and destroying blocks, because you're probably used to, if you want to destroy a big tower of blocks, let's say, you're probably used to like either standing down or like going down it like this, and you can do that. Well, you're also probably used to being able to just like, if you go down from something, you're used to being able to just like do this properly, and like again, from certain sides you can do that. But the thing about this, where you can actually learn like a better tip, because again we made a mistake there, because the speeds of, like, you know, the speed you go left at and the speed you place things, they're not perfectly lined up. It looks like, oh, yeah, it seems here, I could be wrong here, but I think this is actually just about working. So you can do some pretty cool stuff with the higher speed, but it's, again, you go faster, it's not lined up the way you used to, but you can use this to your advantage as well. So not only can you do that, which I didn't know until just on the spot right now, like apparently you can like place really, really, really fast if you do this, right? So yeah, if you want to make just like a little line that's like looks unnatural and not perfectly straight, then you can do that really easily. So again, I'll do the same over here. And look, I'm making myself a circle, just about. So okay, that's an easier way to make. Okay, that's a really bad circle. You know, okay. Let's just test this on the spot right now. I know this is like a fun top 5 video of things you need to learn, but why don't I try and I want to try and show this off. So we found a relatively flat land right here, and let me just show you how we can like probably make a circle just about work. So okay, let's go, and then we go around like this. Okay, that you can't make circles easily. Like, it's an okay circle, but we could round that off and make that really easily into a circle. But my point here is that you can you can use this to your advantage, not only when you're making stuff like this. Okay, there we go. You know, I tried. It's a pretty good circle for like on the spot, but you can use this to destroy stuff a lot easier too. So for instance, if you want to destroy one of these, you might be used to like having to slowly go down like this. And although this is a good way to destroy it, like you get the thing destroyed, there's a really handy function on this new version, which I do quite like, which allows you to destroy stuff instantaneously as you fall. So I can fall just like that, and it destroys as I go with it. So that's quite amazing. You can destroy like insanely fast. Holding down the trigger is now a better idea than like individually tapping it. Again, on the old version, you wanted to individually tap it to get that little bit of extra speed, because the cooldown between breaking one block and breaking the next was pretty high. But in creative on the this version, instant breaking does take effect, which means you can instantly break stuff, and that means if you wanted to, let's say, go down all the way to and we're out of the world already. So if you wanted to do something like that, you could do it really, really insanely quickly, because the breaking speed is just nuts. So let me show you on the way up that it's just as good. Again, we're breaking them as fast as we humanly can, because that's how things work. Is that okay? The husk. I thought it was a llama. I was way more excited. So there you go. There's some tips. Breaking speed much faster in creative, which is good for creative builders, I guess. And there are 5 survival tips to get a little bit better at the survival game. Hopefully you did all enjoy this video. You can like it if you did like it, because it helps out the channel a lot. Let us know you do like these sorts of videos. Share if you really liked it, and subscribe if you're new around here, because I make videos like this one every single day on my channel. And if you subscribe, you'll see them daily on your homepage. Thank you very much for watching this thing. I'm going to try and find my way home now. Again, there's lots of downsides in the new version. There's lots of upsides, but just make sure you're prepared for them so you don't get blown up by a creeper, so you don't waste your sword, so you don't waste your time, and so you, I guess, yeah, don't waste your time, and so you don't die horribly and painfully.